Подстрахуй. Лучки, тримайте. Постріл.
Something that will change our daily lives, that will change history, 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 that will change history. That will be the most beautiful day.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much for tuning in to our weekly Intel report for the week of June 14th, 2023. This week we're having a bit of a special report. I am your host, Kleptar, here today to bring you the latest news and developments from around the world for about the past week. This week, however, we will be focusing primarily on kind of a niche topic, which we will be getting into here shortly. First of all, I'd like to give a big shout-out, a big thank you to all of our viewers tuning in from around the world tonight. Big shout-out to Mike Barry. Good to see you. Charles McPherson. Good to see you as well. Doug Wilson, as always. Good to see you. Pocket Frog. Good to see you as well. Thomas Cooley. Doug Wilson says, what up? What up to you, Doug Wilson? Mike Barry, we're changing history. Indeed, we are. Tenestrial says, Russian leader Nemico. What's up, Tenestrial? Thank you so much for tuning in tonight. Paddywhack, thank you so much for being with us and keeping the peace there as one of our moderators in the live chat says, probe that like button. Yes, indeed, if we can get everybody in the chat to probe the like button this evening, it would be greatly appreciated. We have to probe the algorithm. Again, we have to cater to the algorithm's needs here, so probe that like button if you haven't already on your way in. Pocket Frog says, get in my UFO. Indeed, we'll be getting in there here shortly. In fact, let's head over to the UFO right now. Let's see if we can get over there real quick. We'll hop into the UFO. Yes, that's more like it. And of course, this evening, guys, again, this is our special report. We're calling it tinfoil time here on Nemico Network. So make sure you have equipped your tinfoil hats. We definitely need the added protection because we're treading into some uncharted territory this evening, ladies and gentlemen, to say the least. Jeff Macro, thank you so much for tuning in tonight. Renee, good to see you. Gloria Chapman, good to see you as well. Just Me, good to see you back. Said, what did I miss? UFO whistleblower. We'll be getting into all that here and more. We have a whole bunch of very interesting news this week as we kind of take a break from our usual news cycle, and we're going to be doing something a little bit different, to say the least. Barbara Brownell, good to see you as well. Also, a big shout out to everybody that's tuning in on Twitch this evening. For those that don't know, we do live stream both on YouTube and Twitch. So again, those of you over there on Twitch, love to see you here tonight. Crushing Pie, so much, so glad to have you here in the chat tonight. To everybody that's taking some time out of your day to be here with us. Sydney Pruden, I see you there. Ookden, can't miss you. Red Bread, good to see you as well. Crushing Pie, thank you so much. for becoming a member there. I also saw somebody earlier in the live stream gave a super chat. Let me see if I can scroll back and see who did that. Now, I can't go back that far at the moment, but to whoever you are, thank you so much. Big shout out to you for that super chat. And also, Joe Blowwind, I believe, gifted some community subs at the beginning of the stream as well. Big shout out to you. Sorry, we're a little late this evening. We had a little bit of a hiccup there while we tried to reconfigure the stream, the UFO here, sort of speak, to get everything ready for you guys. But again, we're going to be covering a few different topics this evening. Again, we're focusing on this UAP/UFO story here that we have. We have a couple stories, actually. Flash Gordon, good to see you, says, I've ignored the UFO headlines. I myself have ignored quite a few of the headlines, but there's been quite a big demand from people asking me to cover this subject, and so I figured it'd be a good chance to do something different, and so we're going to get our hands dirty here and dive right in and see what we can uncover. Kim Buckles, good to see you. Says, I got my tinfoil undies on. Had to use a hairdryer to warm them up before putting them on. It's only 8C here in the morning. That sounds pretty chilly. Pretty chilly indeed. Yeah, to everybody, make sure you have equipped your tinfoil hats this evening. We got a lot to go over. So, the first news we're going to be speaking about this evening is, of course, that whistleblower story. The Pentagon intelligence agent who came out as a whistleblower here. We're going to be talking about that first. And then we're going to be diving into the Las Vegas, what I'm calling the Las Vegas UFO fiasco. We'll be diving into that. We'll be taking a look at a bunch of different footage tonight. We got a whole bunch of stuff to be showing you guys. It's going to be a really great time. Again, if you haven't already, hit the like button, subscribe. It's the only way to get access to the live chat over there on YouTube. Make sure you are hitting that notification bell so you're getting notified when new streams and videos go live. For those of you that don't know, we do have a Discord server. If you like this sort of content, if you want to join in with all the great people we have in our community, you can do so over on our community Discord server. There's a link to that in the description below. Everybody is welcome to join us over there and transcend to a greater state of being as we travel through the cosmos here and unlock the universe's greatest secrets. All right, let's head over to our situation room here. All right, so again, the first story we're going to be going into this evening is this report of this whistleblower. Name is David Grusch, who I believe this was sometime last week, came out with this news here, first reported by News Nation, but was picked up by a lot of different news agencies here. We're gonna go to the source here, and we're gonna be looking at the report directly from the debrief and News Nation. We'll take a look at the News Nation interview first, and I'll read that article, and then we'll actually look at the interview that they did, that David Grusch, this whistleblower, did. And for those that aren't familiar with this situation, I will be giving some background here on Mr. Grusch and this whole entire situation as it's happened, and we'll get everybody filled in here. Let's go over to our main screen here. Let's see if we can get a better view of this here. Okay, all right. I'll just scoot down over here. Right over. That sounds good. All right. So again, for decades here, and I'm going to read the article directly here. It says, for decades, the UFO question has been consigned to the realm of speculation, conspiracy theory, and science fiction. I would personally, just to interrupt here, I would personally argue that over the past year or two, with all the information we've seen released from agencies, a bunch of three-letter agencies like the FBI, the CIA, especially those declassified CIA documents, all of the news we've gotten from the Pentagon, the videos we've gotten from the Pentagon, the news about the UAP task force, all that stuff, I would argue that we've came a long way from the realm of speculation, conspiracy theory, and science fiction. It says here, however, in recent years, serious people have started talking on the subject with a more academic approach. The renewed interest has been prompted in part by the recent release of videos purporting to show encounters between American naval aviators and what the Pentagon has labeled, quote, unidentified aerial phenomenon. Congress has convened hearings to determine what these UAP are and what threat, if any, they might pose. Quote, the UAP do indeed represent a potential threat to our security. Then the capabilities, systems, processes, and sources we use to observe and study or analyze these phenomena need to be classified at appropriate levels. That came directly from Scott Bray, Deputy Director of Naval Intelligence for the United States of America. The Department of Defense has established a special team called the All-Domain Anomaly Resolution Office, also known as AARO, or just AARO is what most people refer to it as. This is a different entity than the UAP, the original UAP task force, so don't get those two confused. Its job is to investigate and to identify what are now hundreds of reported sightings. So far, they have not confirmed any of them to constitute proof of alien life. The U.S. government's official stance, however, remains the same. Human beings are alone. So again, they still have this concrete stance. And we're going to get into the more speculative side of all of this later in the show. So stick around for that. For now, I'm just reading this article here directly from News Nation. Guy Gromley said, sounds like you're having an issue with your mic. The sound is a bit rough, somebody said. Let's see if we can get that fixed real quick. Somebody said, is the sound coming from a UFO? Yeah, let's hope not. Okay, is that better? This should be better. Let's get an audio test here in the live chat. The gain. Okay, so I'm gonna take a look at my audio settings here really quick, people. How about now? How does this sound? Benny Hill says audio is fine. Yeah, better. You were clipping. All right. Well, I think we settled the microphone issue. Jeffrey Macro says, I thought it was the alien transmitting the messages to my brain. So it sounds like we got the audio taken care of. Again, I'm going to continue on here with this article from News Nation. Yes, as Hugo says, it could be the tinfoil resonance. Night Tinter Space says, it's a bit better now, thank you. Well, at least we're sounding a little bit better here. So again, let's go ahead and let's watch this interview here by News Nation. I'm going to break it down for you guys piece by piece. We're going to watch the entire interview, or at least chunks of it. We might skip through a little bit of it. We're going to take a look at the entire interview here, and we're going to listen to what Mr. Grusch has to say. Now, again, for those that don't know, he had about 18 years ago, he received an Air Force scholarship in physics. He was originally commissioned as an active duty and served 14 years in the Air Force. He became a career intelligence officer. Grusch spent time on the ground in Afghanistan and other places he can't mention before rotating back to Washington, D.C. He says, at my last position, which I left in April of 2023, I co-led the UAP portfolio that stands for Unidentified Aerial Phenomena, or Unidentified Anomalous Phenomena, depending on who you're speaking to. For the National Geospatial Intelligence Agency and some of the highest officials within the Department of Defense and Intelligence community, used to call on me to advise them on some of the hardest target sets that the country had. Now again, this guy's background does indeed check out. Let's go ahead and listen to this interview here, and actually this is the video here. We'll get this going here and make sure that we can hear it fine.
Legend is true.
All right. Let's restart it. Okay. Now again, I'm gonna I'll occasionally pause here to break things down for you guys and to respond to comments in the live chat.
Tonight, for the first time, a former senior military intelligence officer comes forward to say what we've only imagined is true.
You are saying to the human race, for the first time, we are not alone.
We're definitely not alone.
Claims that our government has proof of alien life.
We have spacecraft from another species?
We do, yeah.
How many?
Quite a number. Some are landed, some are crashed.
Allegations of
So again, and I feel like I should stress this very clearly, is that he hasn't come forward with any direct evidence. And we need to keep that in mind here. We need to stay skeptical the entire time that we're watching this, okay? Keep your tinfoil hat on, keep the skeptical brain turned on there, and realize that he hasn't come forward with any direct evidence. However, his background and his credentials check out also to make these claims, if they are in fact false. I'm pretty sure there's some legality issues there for Mr. Grusch that he would be dealing with if he's coming out and making these false statements, which again had to be passed. They had to be cleared by the DOD. They had to clear him to make statements like these. Again, let's go ahead and continue watching the video here.
of a secret government program that has hidden the truth, the technology, from the world.
There's a sophisticated disinformation campaign targeting the U.S. populace, which is extremely unethical and immoral, and it's totally frightening.
From Roswell to the present day.
We're all going against the wind. The wind's 120 knots from the west.
There are non-prosaic cases, 100% unexplainable. I mean, this is like tangible technical craft they're seeing.
Is this decorated officer a liar?
Why should we believe?
So, as my talking head says, it's a psyop to distract us from something else. And that's a whole point that I'm going to get into later in this show, because I have a whole bunch of stuff to talk about when it comes to distractions, okay? And why this is kind of a distraction. And some theories that I have around, surrounding this whole situation here. There's two big UFO stories which have occurred right at the same time this week. And I find it odd that we get both of these UFO stories at once, right after another. Basically at the same time, within the time span of about 24 hours, we got these two stories. We're talking about the first one here, which again is this whistleblower claim, and then there's another story which I'm going to talk about here shortly, which is just as big, if not bigger. All right, so we're going to talk about both of those. And we're going to talk about this whole idea of a distraction later in the show. Let's go ahead and continue listening to what they have to say.
Believe you?
A fool.
Is it possible that you're deluding yourself?
Or a hero.
Again, this guy does have a authentic military and intelligence background. He has a significant past career that does check out. I've personally looked into it, and he does. It's in the public domain that he has a long-standing career in both in military and intelligence.
I'm a patriot, and I believe the truth to power in this.
We're talking about the biggest secret in human history.
We are not alone. The UFO whistleblower speaks. Good evening. I'm Elizabeth Vargas, here to bring you a News Nation exclusive interview with a man we're calling the UFO whistleblower. David Grusch is a career intelligence official who this week is making some bombshell claims of a U.S. government cover-up going back nearly a century, shedding light, he says, on that existential question. Again, you saw that picture there. So he had a scholarship. He went to school for physics. He has a physics background, amongst other things. He doesn't just have. He has multiple degrees, from what I understand, as well as multiple different previous jobs within the defense military space, and within military intelligence as well, which is very significant. He's held a security clearance, so that within itself is significant, but I'll talk a little bit more about that later. Are we alone? News Nation has confirmed David Grusch's credentials and resume. We have not seen or verified the alleged proof he says he's provided to investigators. But we want you to hear his story so you can decide for yourself. So again, and sorry I keep interrupting, but another very significant variable in this whole story, which I see a lot of skeptics skipping over, is the fact that he's been working with what I believe is DOD / Pentagon investigators, and has given them evidence, some form of evidence, testimony, and or physical evidence. I'm not exactly sure which or if both. However, there is evidence, some kind of evidence that has been given to investigators, and there's an investigative body that is currently looking into his claims. All right. Not only that, but Congress has been talking about this. They want to get a hearing. They just had a impromptu meeting about this just the other day, and they're looking at getting an actual hearing put together. I'm not sure if David Grusch would be giving testimony at that hearing. I'm pretty sure he probably would. However, again, there plans to be a public congressional hearing taking place over this subject, which is significant within itself.
Mr. Grusch sat down with investigative journalist Ross Coulthart, who is reporting for News Nation. Mr. Coulthart is an award-winning journalist and author who has reported for the Australian version of 60 Minutes, as well as other news programs in his home country. What you're about to see is part of their conversation, touching on Mr. Grusch's work with the UAP task force, his background and his service to this country, and the alleged secret military program about which he says the world needs to know.
For decades, the UFO question has been consigned to the realm of speculation, but in recent years, serious people have started taking the subject seriously.
You'll see it come through the top of the screen. There it goes.
Prompted in part by the...
So another thing to note here, Kaltenberg, by the way, good to see you, Kaltenberg. Thank you so much for tuning in tonight, says, should have brought proof. That's another thing. And he actually addressed this at one point. So as I just mentioned, there's an investigative body under the Department of Defense looking into this. I believe it's the Department of Defense looking into this, if not another agency. Basically, some kind of oversight committee, I believe, is investigating this. All right. And so somewhere along the line, there was, again, evidence given to them, and that evidence has not been approved for public release. What has been approved by the Department of Defense for public release is his statements, which he's giving to News Nation and other news agencies. All right, so he's been cleared to come out with a public statement in order to protect himself. Which, I mean, would be not only that, but to help bring this to public light, but also to protect himself. He's in the public eye now. This is kind of like an Edward Snowden type event that we're seeing here, okay? I don't know if any of you are familiar with the Edward Snowden whistleblowing events that occurred. Very similar kind of situation here. He's coming out, going public with this news, and again, the evidence that is there is not approved for public release. He can't publicly bring the evidence to light because there's an ongoing investigation. At least that's what I've gathered, and that's what they're saying here.
Release of these videos purporting to show encounters between American naval aviators and what the Pentagon has labelled unidentified aerial or anomalous.
As Mark Cronin, by the way, thank you so much, Mark Cronin, for tuning in tonight, says Edward UFO'd. Very good. Very good.
Phenomena. Congress has convened hearings to determine what these UAP are and what threat they might pose.
If UAP do indeed represent a potential threat to our security, then the capabilities, systems, processes, and sources we use to observe, record, study, or analyze these phenomena need to be classified at appropriate levels.
The Department of Defense has established a special team, formerly known as the UAP Task Force, recently renamed the All-Domain Office, or ARROW, to investigate and identify what are now hundreds of reported sightings. So far, they have not confirmed any of them to constitute proof of alien life. Officially, the government continues to state, we are indeed alone. But now, for the first time, a former member of that official investigative team is speaking out, telling a stunning story that impacts every person on this planet. And now you're about to meet that man for the very first time in this exclusive television interview. Welcome. Have a seat. Maybe start off telling me your name and who you are.
My name is David Grusch. You know, I came from a blue-collar family in Pittsburgh. I didn't have the money for college. always admired people in uniform, and I've always wanted to be a part of something bigger than myself. 18 years ago, I got an Air Force scholarship for physics. I originally commissioned on active duty in the Air Force, served 14 years in the Air Force.
I look at this photograph, Dave.
So again, just to remind everybody, just the significance of his Air Force career. 14 years spent in the Air Force. That is a pretty significant Air Force career, to say the least. This guy has been there and done it. That is for sure. So just keep that in mind when you're listening to Mr. Grusch here.
And I see a very proud officer.
I was getting promoted to captain when I was deployed.
And you still love your country, don't you?
Absolutely.
A career intelligence officer, Grusch spent time on the ground in Afghanistan and other places he can't mention before rotating back to Washington.
I was an intel officer for the U.S. for 14 years. My last position, which I left in April of 2023, I co-led the UAP portfolio for the National Geospatial Intelligence Agency, and some of the highest officials within the Department of Defense and Intelligence community used to call on me to advise them on some of the hardest target sets that the country had.
You are one of the most...
A user made a comment here that I think is just worth reading. Liminal, he says, always wanted to be part of something bigger than himself, like trolling the entire world about UFOs. Again, keep the skeptic brain on, guys. I promote we gotta stay skepticism is key here.
Most trusted former intelligence officials in the US defense and intelligence establishment.
Yes, I was.
You were trusted with the most intimate secrets.
Yes.
And he says the most earth-shattering of those secrets were revealed after 2019, when he was invited to join the UAP task force. You had the security classifications to go anywhere and ask anyone anything.
I had, based on my formal security clearance and multiple polygraphs, I had the ability to be read into any program that I needed. At one point in time, I was extremely highly cleared.
What conclusion did you come to at the end of your time on the UAP task force?
The UAP task force was refused access to a broad crash retrieval program.
When you say crash retrieval, what do you mean?
These are retrieving non-human origin technical vehicles, call it spacecraft if you will, non-human, exotic origin vehicles that have either landed or crashed.
We have spacecraft from another species.
We do, yeah.
How many?
Quite a number.
You're kidding.
No. I thought it was totally nuts, and I thought at first I was being deceived.
Kaltenberg says, why have a UAP task force if the government knows about UFOs for Congress? The theory there is that it's basically just an asset for Congress. Jeffrey Macrow says, Nemico, have you seen the response video by Mick West? Tell me if I'm spoiling. I believe we're going to watch that here tonight, Jeffrey. So stay tuned here. Don't worry. We're going to be watching a whole bunch of stuff here tonight. I got a lot to show you.
It was a ruse. People started confiding in me. They approached me. I have plenty of current and former senior intelligence officers that came to me, many of which I knew almost my whole career, that confided in me they were a part of a program. They named the program. I've never heard of it. And they told me, based on their oral testimony, and they provided me documents and other proof, that there was, in fact, a program that the UAP task force was not read into.
Okay, for a second here, guys, let's put on our tinfoil hats here. Now, here's a question to pose to pick your human brains there. Is Mr. Grusch here? Is he the one being rused? Is he the one being deceived here? He says he was told accounts of things happening. He said he was shown documents and all sorts of stuff. He was fed information. Is Mr. Grusch the one being deceived? Think about that for a second.
You are alleging that the US government has been concealing the existence on this planet of alien life.
I would couch it as non-human intelligence, NHI, like we like to say in our language.
Why do you say that? Why do you say NHI?
I don't want to necessarily denote origin. I don't think we have all the data to say, oh, they're coming from a certain location, and I couch.
So, okay, here's another thing which I'll talk about maybe a little bit more later. In a follow-up statement that Mr. Grusch made after he did this interview, he gave a little bit more information, and he alluded, he basically, right here he's saying, we don't have enough data to say, okay, they're coming from a specific location or they're from a certain place. In his follow-up statement, he even started talking about, that they might be from here, but like multi-dimensional and all sorts of stuff he was talking about. We'll talk about that more here later, but I thought it would be worth a mention here because it kind of explains what he meant by that. What he meant was they don't have enough data to say, okay, they're coming from this planet or they came from this location or whatever. They don't, apparently, from what I'm gathering here, they don't really know entirely.
As somebody who studied physics where maybe they're coming from a different physical dimension as described in quantum mechanics. We know there's extra dimensions due to high energy particle collisions, etc. And there's a theoretical framework to explain that. Yeah.
Just let me cut to the quick though. You're saying there is an intelligent species engaging with this planet?
Yes, that's potentially extraterrestrial, yeah.
I speak for everybody sitting at home. That is a shock.
It was to me, and I had a lot of sleepless nights.
Grusch says he's never personally seen non-human intelligence, but he's spoken to enough people directly involved in what he calls the program that he's convinced it's real.
I started out as a non-believer. I came to the problem as a hardcore physics guy, intel officer, so I have a, excuse my language, high factor. I was very methodical, interviewing people who didn't know each other, making sure this wasn't some kind of cover-up of some other program.
He says he pressed to gain direct access to this program, and that's when his trouble started. Grusch claims his investigation was stymied, his requests for access rebuffed.
They shut the door in my face. They denied me access to these programs.
Soon after, he says, he endured reprisals and retaliation from above. He then reported that information to the Intelligence Community Inspector General. That's why he's filed this whistleblower complaint. He says that experience is why he decided to go public here and in a recent article written by Leslie Kane in the
There's another thing I feel like a lot of skeptics have skipped over is the fact that he's filed these official complaints. He went as far to go to basically the Intelligence Inspector General, and so there's actual official. He's gone through official channels before coming to the news here, and there's an official investigation underway looking into this to his claims here, looking into what Mr. Grusch is saying.
The debrief. You're not being paid for this interview?
No, I'm not.
Why are you doing this?
It's a sense of service, Call me a Boy Scout or whatever. It just, when I saw the kind of wrongdoing I did, I don't want to be 60, 70 years old in the future and have that, coulda, shoulda, woulda kind of feeling where I could have made a difference. I do not want to live a life of regret.
You are saying to the human race, for the first time, an official intelligence representative at a high level from the US government is saying publicly, we are not alone.
We're definitely not alone. Absolutely, the data points empirically that we're not alone, yeah.
You've said that the United States has spacecraft, intact craft.
We do.
Do we have bodies? Do we have species of
Well,
non-human?
Naturally, when you recover something that's either landed or crashed, sometimes you encounter dead pilots. And believe it or not, as fantastical as that sounds, it's true.
Have you seen spacecraft?
I've seen some interesting photos and I've read some very interesting reports.
But, he says, the specific documents and photos that would prove his claims are still classified, and he cannot
Again, right here, as I just mentioned shortly ago, the evidence that he's speaking of is still classified. He's unable to come forward with that evidence. It would be, against the law, basically. He would go to jail for that. But also, on the other hand, he filed that whistleblower complaint. And if the statements he is making are false, then he could potentially be in some legal trouble for making those statements.
Disclose them here. Let's deal with the issue of your credibility. Why should we believe you? You're just somebody coming out of nowhere, making claims that we really ultimately can't prove.
Yeah. Well, we provided the proof internally to the Inspector General and the Hill staff, and we went into all the details. I mean, I have the credentials.
Right there, he says
on
it.
UAP task force.
Right there, he says it. He says, basically, he doesn't care. Yet he knows that he hasn't come publicly with any evidence, but he's given that evidence to the Inspector General. He's given it to the right people within the government, and that it's their job to take it further. And so he's just doing this public. He's coming forward and going public with this. It's kind of an extra layer of redundancy here.
But let's face it, allegations of aliens and their spacecraft are hard to accept, even coming.
As Kaltenberg says, he's giving a really big trust me, bro.
From a respected insider. Even if you call them NHI and UAP, how could such NHI travel to Earth in the first place and go undetected by the general public? Grusch says the craft may not be travelling through space as we understand it.
It is a well-established fact, at least mathematically and based on empirical observation and analysis, that there most likely are physical additional spatial dimensions. And you could imagine in 4 and 5D space where what we experience as linear time ends up being a physical dimension in higher dimensional space, where if you were living there, you could translate across what we perceive as a linear flow. So there is a possibility that, and this is a theory here, I'm not saying this is 100% the case, but it could be that this is not necessarily extraterrestrial, and it's actually coming from a higher dimensional physical space that might be co-located, right here.
What can you tell me about these craft, these technologies? Why do you know it's exotic?
Based on the very specific properties that I was briefed on, isotopic ratios that would have to be engineered for it to be at those levels, but also just extremely strange, heavy atomic metal, high up in the periodic table arrangements that we don't understand, what the emergent properties are, but there's just a very strange mix of elements.
So you're absolutely sure that the materials that these craft are made of are clearly not of this Earth?
Yeah, they're sophisticatedly engineered, certainly not by humans.
And while Grusch says the US has gleaned some insight from these materials for military use, so much more could be done if academia and the private sector had access.
It's totally nuts that humanity as a whole, especially the U.S. citizenry as a whole, they're not even benefiting from broad research on this to solve propulsion, energy issues, novel material science that can improve people's quality of life. It's just totally nuts how it's been protected and inhibits progress.
If you're right, if you're telling us the truth, everyone, the entire American public, has been lied to for decades.
Yeah, there's a sophisticated disinformation campaign targeting the U.S. populace, which is extremely unethical and immoral.
Coming up, how long has this been going on?
A lot of the things I was briefed on were very shocking.
So again, for those just tuning in, we're watching the News Nation interview here with David Grusch, the UFO whistleblower, and we're kind of breaking down what he's saying here piece by piece as he goes through it. So we just got done kind of listening to his explanation of why he's coming forward, a little bit about his background, and basically the summary of the claim. And now they're going to go into a little bit more in depth on the topic here. Lee Crisp, thank you so much for tuning in tonight. Shadow Hunter of the Light Side 2, thank you so much for tuning in this evening. Curb Creeper, good to see you. Mark Cronin, good to see you as well. Florida Mullet Man 5000. That is an awesome name, by the way. Florida Mullet Man 5000. Good to see you. He says this is all a distraction from the evil people that control our media. They put these dummies out there on these MSM shows and get everyone riled up. Could be. Doom Pie says, money, money, money. I think that has a lot to do with things, that's for sure. Liminal says, it's like Pizzagate, except with aliens. Special Force Horse, good to see you, says Musk is possibly a visitor from another planet. I could see it. Katlenberg says, yes, conspiracy involving thousands of people in government. Billy Bob 420 says, whole thing is weird to me. I agree, very weird. I think we could all agree on that. Whether he's telling the truth or whether he's, flat out lying, or rather maybe he's telling the truth or what he believes is the truth, but is information that he's been fed. Who knows? But one thing I believe we all can agree on here is that it is definitely a little weird. Gottlingberg says, Curb, alien bling. Thomas Cooley, good to see you, says we had crazy alloys with isotopers added in the 50s. I can only imagine what they've come up with since, that's for sure. Ritsu says, were aliens. Possibly. Paddywhack, a great Paddywhack reminder there in the live chat. Don't forget to probe that like button, everybody. Also, as Charles McPherson says, News Nation is credible as OAN. I agree. News Nation, not the most credible source here, guys. But again, and I do find it interesting that they were the ones that took this interview, or more importantly, the ones that ended up having this interview go viral. Is quite interesting. Pepe, good to see you. Thank you so much for the super chat there. I believe you also gave one earlier in the show, if I'm not mistaken. So thank you for those super chats there. Highly appreciated. Shake the Hand says, wait and see if he strikes up a book deal. Guests on talk shows, guests on TED, and see what he's trying to cash in. So again, that's another thing, that I was speaking of earlier. It's like, what would be his motivation for this? What is his motivation? Could he be looking to profit off of this? Again, from what I've heard is that if he is indeed making false statements here with that whistleblower report, if he's making false statements, he could possibly face jail time. From what I've heard, or at least some kind of criminal some kind of criminal proceeding, some kind of criminal indictment, so to speak, if he is indeed lying here. From what I've heard, I'm not sure exactly how much merit there is to that. However, nonetheless, we're going to go ahead here and continue watching the interview, and let's listen to what Mr. Grusch has to say here.
So let's start from the very beginning. Mm-hmm. You say it's a 90-year cover-up.
Just about, yeah.
90 years.
So again, he's saying that this cover-up has been going on for around 90 years. That would put it, I believe, pre-Roswell, or right around Roswell, if I'm not mistaken.
1933 was the first recovery.
So 1933, so that's pre-Roswell.
In Europe, in Magenta, Italy. They recovered.
He's saying the first recovery here was in Magenta, Italy in the 1930s.
A partially intact vehicle.
It's long been known that the regime of dictator Benito Mussolini documented numerous UAP during this time. This internal memo from the Italian Secret Services includes crude drawings of the UAPs. It's true, it's real.
Yeah, that actually happened. Italian government moved it to a secure air base in Italy for the rest of kind of the fascist regime until 1944, 1945, and the Pope Pius XII back-channeled that.
So the Vatican was involved?
Yeah, and told the Americans what the Italians had, and we ended up scooping it.
So let me be very clear about this. You're saying that the Catholic Church, the Vatican, they know about the existence of non-human intelligence on this planet?
Certainly.
Grusch says shortly after the dawn of the atomic age, another major crash recovery took place. You've probably heard of it. What can you tell me about the Roswell craft?
Fortunately, those details were not approved for me to talk about right now.
This much we know. In 1947, an object crashed in the New Mexico desert near the town of Roswell.
So again, he keeps saying that certain details, certain pieces of evidence, certain things he's not been cleared to talk about. So he hasn't been cleared to speak about certain things.
Well, the Air Force recovered material described as metallic and rubbery, though the government changed its story as to what it was, calling it a flying disc at first, then a weather or spy balloon. It just read ridiculous to me that the US Air Force had changed its story.
Yeah, and they added additional elements over time and tried to conflate additional programs to explain some of the events.
Why are these things crashing?
Yeah, some are landed, some are crashed, and I think that's an interesting discussion that's come up, as advanced as, we are, as humans, right? Planes crash, cars crash. Just because you're some advanced sentience that has advanced technology doesn't mean some small percentage of your, I'll use the Air Force term like sorties, meet an unfortunate operational conclusion, as we might want to say.
Most people would tell you the Roswell incident has been thoroughly debunked. In fact, the Air Force published this report in 1994 to put the issue to rest once and for all. Grusch has read it.
That analysis I did was a total hack job, and even anybody with analytical skills, if you read it, you can deduce that they're conflating multiple situations with crash test dummies and mogul balloons, and they're just saying that the townsfolk who personally witnessed it were totally imagining things. They concocted that whole report just to disinform.
So the reason for the secrecy exactly is what?
Feudalistic dominance, who can have both asymmetric technology for, it seems like, just fueling the war machine.
Grusch says that through the 50s and 60s, encounters with the NHI continued, as did the cover-up. One incident in 1967, about which multiple Air Force veterans have gone public, involved UAPs tampering with the nuclear missiles at Malmstrom Air Base in Montana. They saw a craft appearing to be
So again, for those of you that tune into the stream quite often, you'll recognize Montana and that Air Force base. Montana is home to many of our nuclear warhead silos, nuclear missile silos here in the United States. And recently, we covered that area in Montana quite significantly when we were live streaming the balloon mania a month or two ago with those Chinese spy balloons and other unidentified objects.
intelligently controlled, hovered over a nuclear weapons silo and shut down 10 nuclear ICBM missiles.
It certainly looks like they want to understand how far we've advanced in our nuclear fizzle kind of technologies at the very least. I mean, it looks like preparatory probing activity. It might be innocent kind of scientific.
So he's saying there. So again, if you listen to what he said there,
Gathering could be
missiles.
It certainly looks like they want to understand how far we've advanced in our nuclear fizzle kind of technologies at the very least. I mean, it looks like preparatory probing activity. It might be innocent kind of scientific gathering, could be ISR probing.
Meanwhile, Grusch says the crash.
So he's giving an explanation as to why they think the the UAPs, why whatever these entities are, what they're doing here, and basically, you know, he was mentioning ISR, so basically intelligence gathering, surveillance, and reconnaissance, or as he said, preemptive probing, as he called it, which is basically probing an enemy's capabilities, and basically making a threat assessment in preparation for something. I mean, there's many different explanations here. He also mentioned scientific research. So like, that these entities could basically just be checking us out, for scientific reasons, in the same way that we might, go into the wild and observe, birds or any other type of species for, scientific research.
Retrieval program continued, and while he won't reveal where the downed craft are stored, he does say that the people working with the technology have been putting themselves at risk.
A lot of them, were injured looking at some of this stuff. You can imagine the nuclear, radiological, and biological risk to looking at an unknown unknown. And a lot of them have literally suffered physically because of their service.
But as we know, anyone who's come forward...
So he's saying there that personnel that are working on these craft or working with these materials are being exposed to radiological threats, things like radiation, things like biological threats, so possibly, the possibility of microorganisms or viruses, stuff like that, they could possibly be coming in contact with, all sorts of stuff, they're putting themselves at risk with when working on these downed craft, these retrieved materials, as he puts it.
Forward claiming non-human intelligence is behind these incidents has been dismissed as delusional or deliberately deceitful. If you're right, if you're telling us the truth, everyone, the entire American public, has been lied to for decades.
Yeah, there's a sophisticated disinformation campaign targeting the U.S. populace, which is extremely unethical and immoral.
Coming up,
It's 120 knots to the west.
new evidence and perhaps new attitudes in a new age of UAPs.
The American people need and deserve to know more.
Has the US government changed its tune?
Here on News Nation.
These are the videos that started it all.
We're going to be looking at a
Footage
couple
captured
of these
by naval
videos.
aviators on
We're going to be looking at a couple of these videos here shortly, so stay tuned. I got some absolute bangers for you guys this evening.
military-grade cameras that defied all prosaic explanation. Dave Grusch has investigated this one, shot in...
Kaltenberg says, Nem, I love your alien. I think your alien loves you.
2015 off the East Coast by fighter pilots from the USS Theodore Roosevelt. There's an industry of debunkers out there on the web who say, oh, they've got this.
Special Force Horse says, sorry guys, I'm kind of on the fence with this one, although I am missing a few hours from last night. Right there with you, Special Force Horse. Right there with you.
It's all wrong. It's a jet exhaust at a distance, and the aircraft's turning. Give me an...
Kitty Gundy says there's another guy who recently left a government group and also has spoke out. I'm good with an open mind. Yes, there is. There's what is his name? Louis what's his name? The ex-Pentagon guy who was with the original UAP task force. He also came forward. There is quite a few Air Force pilots. We're talking like fighter jet pilots that have come through, come forward with their stories and stuff of encounters. There's a lot of people in high up positions of, authority, so to speak, that have come forward with these reports.
I had some optical engineering experts look at that and the Raytheon AT FLIR system based on the pixel saturation and apparent size. It's certainly something that's not a jet. It might be some kind of natural phenomenon that's quite strange, but it's not as simple as a jet.
He has even stronger opinions about this UAP, now known to history as the Tic Tac, shot in 2004 in the Pacific by aviators off the USS Nimitz. And the Tic Tac?
Truly anomalous, absolutely technical vehicle, physical, and that's absolutely something that we didn't make.
I could honestly do an entire live stream, an entire show on that one Tic Tac UFO incident. For those that aren't familiar with that incident, I highly recommend you look into it. Maybe I'll do a video on it at some point if the tinfoil time continues in the future, we might do an episode on the Tic Tac incident.
Not of this world.
Most likely, yeah.
The videos were leaked in 2017, then officially released by the Pentagon in 2020. At the time, it seemed the Pentagon may have finally abandoned its obsession with secrecy and decided to do what other countries have been doing for decades: establish a properly funded, publicly accountable team to investigate reports of UAP. Dave Grusch was part of that team.
This is a hunt mission for what might somebody be doing in our backyard that we don't know about.
The task force set about investigating these incidents, including more recent events like the odd encounters that took place during naval exercises in 2019 off the coast of San Diego. This video, shot on the USS Omaha and later leaked to documentarian Jeremy Corbell, has received particular attention. It either zooms off so fast you can't see it or it sinks into the ocean, but it seems to drop. What do you know about it?
It was truly anomalous.
But Grusch says the promised new age of government transparency is a fallacy. For starters, he says the videos that have been released are just the tip of the iceberg.
There are many videos that are totally fair to release through a declassification process. And I find it very concerning from a transparency perspective that all that the department has declassified were those 3 famous videos. There are more concerning videos that left me with a lot of questions, yeah.
He says there are credible witnesses who could testify to Congress about spacecraft, big spacecraft.
A lot of them were very large, yeah. Like a football field kind of size. And I remember interviewing these personnel. I'm like, either these people are lying to me, they're having a psychotic break, or this is some crazy but true stuff that's happening, and I have no good explanation that's prosaic at all for this, because this is not explainable by, swamp gas, St. Elmo's fire, ball lightning, et cetera, et cetera. I mean, this is like tangible technical craft they're seeing up close and personal in some cases when I interview people.
And at the centre of it all, the crash retrieval program the government has never publicly acknowledged. A program, Grusch says, that's included at least one private aerospace company that is storing alien craft. Is that true?
That is how a lot of these relationships are. While I don't want to name the specific companies and government elements, but overall, the government has been the custodian of a lot of this, right? And they'll hand receipt it out to a cleared defense contractor to do some analysis, which I find highly unethical. You have basically a sole source arrangement, and you allow certain private corporate elements to look at this, develop a potential insight, and then sell it back to the government for profit. And I think that's totally unethical.
The problem you've got is there have been categorical denials from high-level officials in the US government, even presidents, that what you're saying is true.
Unfortunately, some elected officials were not brought in.
Only a few weeks ago, 19th of April, the head of the Pentagon's UAP investigations program, Dr. Sean Kirkpatrick, told Congress AARO, that's the Pentagon's UFO investigation body, has found no credible evidence thus far of extraterrestrial activity, off-world technology, or objects that defy the known laws of physics.
While a large number of cases in our holdings remain technically unresolved, this is primarily due to a lack of data associated with those cases.
Was that a lie?
Well, I know Dr. Sean Kirkpatrick. I've known him for about 8 years. And, I expressed some concerns to Dr. Kirkpatrick about a year ago and told him what I was starting to uncover. And he didn't follow up with me. And he has my phone number. He could have called me. I hope he ultimately does the right thing. He should be able to make the same investigative discoveries I did. It's totally crazy if he doesn't.
So the implication here is that the head of the very body that Congress has ordered to tell the American public the truth about UAPs is possibly misleading the American public. Do you think the American public is being lied to?
Well,
so if what Mr. Grusch, okay, and 1 second here. Tinfoil hats here. Tinfoil hats. Okay. If Mr. Grusch is telling the truth here, then the deception goes very, very deep.
they've been lied to over the years, and I'm hoping that the lies stop.
Coming up, it gets even scarier. The UFO whistleblower says the NHIs aren't all friendly. Have human beings been...
So this is where this interview starts to get a little weird, a little dark. All right. I mean, I would argue that the whole interview has been a little weird, but right here is where this interview starts to begin to take a left turn. Let's take a look.
Been hurt or killed by a non-human intelligence. And guess who they might be working with?
We're in a competition with their adversaries to understand this.
And this is exactly why this story is very relevant for what we do here on this channel. I believe that a lot of this UFO, UAP stuff that we're seeing now ties a lot into the China-Russia narrative here. And we're going to talk about that a lot more here later in the show. Stay tuned, but let's keep watching.
And it's a multi-decade Cold War that has been under our nose for so long.
News Nation.
The common interpretation from some commentators is that there is a non-human species and it's incredibly benevolently well disposed to the human race.
Yeah, and I think that is the logical fallacy there is because they're advanced, they're kind. We'll never really understand full intent in that because we're not them, whatever them is or are. But I think what appears to be malevolent activity has happened based on not only nuclear site probing activities, witness testimony.
Nuclear site probing. Witness testimony.
I think at least if we look at it through a humanistic lens, it does appear negative.
Humanistic lens.
At least to us.
I've been told that there have been attempts to bring down craft, that we've acted offensively against non-human craft.
There have been instances, and there are certain techniques.
Have human beings been hurt?
Certain techniques, he says.
Or killed by a non-human intelligence?
While I can't get into the specifics because that would reveal certain U.S. classified operations, I was briefed by a few individuals on the program that there were malevolent events like that.
No, I'm scared. People have just heard you say...
Malevolent events.
Non-humans may well have murdered human beings.
That seems to be the case at one point, yeah.
And there's more. Grusch says the United States is not the only country that's encountered NHI and their technology. He says
Listen to this.
Our geopolitical rivals have their own crash retrieval programs, which they are also secretly exploiting for military purposes.
We're in a competition with their adversaries to understand this. And it's a multi-decade Cold War that has been under our nose for so long. And, you know, there is no good way to level the playing field and hold other nation states accountable if they're doing unethical or illicit activity as it relates to this subject. And I think the obtuse secrecy is actually putting us in a very dangerous position where a country might make a
Kaltenberg says, and I kind of agree with this, something off with his expressions. I do agree with that as well. However, I've heard from some linguistic experts, some body language experts that have broken down this interview say that he is giving a truthful demeanor. However, that he is withholding some information, which again that's what he's telling us, is that there are some things he can't say to us because he hasn't been cleared to say things. But from what I've gathered, experts that in linguistics and body language say that he is indeed telling, or at least he believes he's telling the truth. He's not giving any tells that he's lying. However, he could, again, with that said, he could be fed information and is just believing what he has been told.
A breakthrough that say it's an adversary of ours, and it is so destabilizing.
You say there's been a Cold War behind the scenes with Russia and China.
There has been a Cold War with our peer adversaries, yeah.
Why hasn't Russia or China come out and spoken publicly about this?
I think they're in a similar, pickle as us, where it's they understand maybe some of the socioeconomic destabilization factors in their own society.
But if this non-human intelligence is so advanced, and at least some of them are malevolent, why haven't they destroyed us already? Perhaps some fragile yet combustible détente has been reached. Grusch has written an internal document about his discoveries that refers to agreements that risk putting our future in jeopardy. And it's quite clear that you're talking about agreements between America and non-human intelligences. Have we made agreements with non-human intelligences?
That's the kind of information I really hope national leadership is able to get to the bottom of.
I need to pin you down on this. Are there agreements between non-human intelligences and the American government?
I think that's a question that I would like to know all the details of as well.
We do know of at least one agreement among humans that's worth noting. This 1971 agreement between the US and the USSR on measures to reduce the risk of nuclear war. Whether or not you believe Dave Grusch, this document proves the two superpowers were aware that UAP existed, whatever they were.
If you look at Article 3 of that treaty, it talks about unidentified objects near nuclear facilities or interfering with communications. And that is a treaty that has been used, from what I understand, to notify each other if there's a concerning event.
And that's a way of saying to the Russians, hey, don't shoot at us, it's not us.
Yeah, I mean, that's certainly a concern because of the secrecy. There is an environment where you could have almost like a false flag, where true non-prosaic UAP situation could be contrived as,
XXX Marco, don't worry. We're getting to it, all right? We're getting there, all right? We're just finishing up with this interview real quick, and then we're going to get to the Vegas UFO story.
Provocation of something from a nation state, and we want to de-escalate that.
If this is true, if the stakes are so high, if the fate of the human race is at stake, perhaps it's no surprise to hear Grusch say the US government will do anything to keep these secrets safe. Can I put it to you that crimes must have been committed?
At the very least, I saw substantive evidence that white-collar crime was committed.
Have people been killed to protect this secret?
Based on the people I talked to, that was an ongoing concern. Yeah, unfortunately, I've heard some really un-American things I don't want to repeat right now.
So you have a strong suspicion that people have been murdered to protect this secret?
Over the years, yeah.
Coming up, a reality check. Is it possible that you're deluding yourself? It's time to put our whistleblower's credibility to the test. Everybody watching this right now is looking at your face. Mm-hmm. They're going, is this guy for real?
Let's put it to the test here on News Nation.
Let's talk about what Dave Grusch doesn't have. He doesn't have smoking gun documents or photos. He doesn't have official confirmation of his claims. He's just a guy talking on camera, and a lot of his answers to our most pointed questions sound like this. Can you comment?
Unfortunately, I cannot.
So who is this guy really?
I don't want fame or fortune. I'm just here to provide public leadership on an issue that I uncovered, and I thought it was totally outrageous.
News Nation has confirmed through multiple sources that Dave Grusch is who he says he is. And
Just imagine for one moment that this guy is actually legit, and he's in the know that aliens are real, and he's just like, well, what the hell? Why is there this big conspiracy? He's like one of us. Like if any one of us here in the chat knew that aliens were real, right, we would probably spill the beans, or if we knew that there was a conspiracy to keep it from the American people, one of us would probably do the same thing and spill the beans. Imagine for one moment though that he is who he says he is, and he's actually telling the truth here, and that he's being authentic, and that that he's seen and or heard some shit from actual high level ranking people that is real. Just imagine for one moment that scenario.
an Air Force veteran from Pittsburgh who worked in military intelligence and was part of the UAP task force. Maybe he's just a confident, well-spoken ex-military intelligence officer who just happens to have lost his mind. Do you have any kind of mental illness?
No.
Have you ever had a psychosis, a delusion?
No.
Is there anything in your medical history that might be capable of being interpreted as a reason why you might be confabulating, making things up?
No, I'm not a disgruntled employee. I resigned on my own accord because I thought altruistically it's more appropriate to show thought leadership on the outside on this now, because I hit an impasse within the government to try to right this wrong.
So I've got to be blunt about this.
Yeah.
You're not making this up. This is
No.
not a lie.
No, absolutely not.
Because everybody watching this right now is looking at your face. They're going, is this guy for real?
I am for real. And I'm sitting here at great personal risk and obvious professional risk by talking to you today.
You've told us.
I can agree and disagree with that statement. Two things of note here. On one hand, he is putting himself at risk. If what he's saying is true and that there is this massive conspiracy to cover up the existence of extraterrestrials or what be it, he is putting himself at risk from that secretive cabal, so to speak, okay? On the other hand, he's also putting himself at risk professionally here. Very hard for anybody to take him seriously after this within the intelligence community. He's known as a whistleblower here, and you don't necessarily want whistleblowers working for you in intel, okay? A whistleblower is somebody that leaks intel, so, that is counterproductive, so to speak. Again, on the other hand of this on the other side of the spectrum here, it is possible, that he could be looking to profit off of this. However, a problem with that theory is that if he is indeed lying here, he could possibly be facing legal repercussions for coming forward with false information, for filing whistleblower complaints with false information. He could be facing some legal issues. And again, so there's a lot of different variables here at work.
That we really are not alone. Even though you believe what you say is true, you haven't been fed disinformation.
And so, to expand on the whole idea of him profiting, you look at things like book deals. If he's getting maybe book deals or doing more interviews, for money and that sort of thing. Going to seminars and conferences, about aliens and UFOs. Yeah, he could be getting paid to do things. This could be a retirement plan for him, so to speak. That was my first idea, is that this is a retirement plan. But again, kind of like his retirement plan. But again, it's like if he's possibly facing legal repercussions for giving false information and filing false complaints, that could be again kind of a that could be a kink in that theory there. That could be a stop in that theory there. The theory that he is somehow going to profit off this, again could be thwarted by the possibility that he could be facing some kind of legal repercussions for coming forward with this information.
a common thing in intelligence for governments to mislead.
Yeah, I was very sensitive to that fact. Was this some kind of ruse against me? Am I being used in any kind of way? And I took about 4 years being very methodical before I filed my whistleblower complaint to be absolutely certain of these basic facts.
So take me through the process of how you convinced yourself that this is real.
Well, based on the credentialed people that came to me, some of these subjects provided me sensitive foreign intelligence to read, sensitive program documents and photographs to evaluate, and then described in very specific detail how all this worked. And they were telling me the exact, extremely specific details that it all checked out. Yeah.
You know, the thing I have trouble with, it's the fact that my experience as a journalist is it's very hard for governments to keep secrets. Most things leak. Your government leaks like a sieve. Why hasn't this leaked?
Well, I've certainly been the recipient of a lot of U.S. government secrets, and I can tell you they've never seen the light of day. That's for sure. And I guess ostensibly this has leaked like a sieve for decades, but it was a very sophisticated disinformation campaign where they have allowed some of the truth to come out through some of their trade crafts, but they've disenfranchised people, they've stigmatized it, they made it like this total wacky thing to talk about. So anybody who may come forward with
Stigmatization.
that kind of information has looked like a total tinfoil hat guy, because
like
it's
a tinfoil hat guy or a tinfoil hat alien.
Amalgamation of disinformation to just make it look crazy.
The best reason to believe Dave Grusch may be this document.
The biggest reason to believe Mr. Grusch, I like how it accentuates the S's, Grusch, is this document.
Remember that whistleblower complaint?
Whistleblower complaint!
He filed. It would seem it hasn't fallen on deaf ears. So the Inspector General of the Intelligence Services of the
Inspector General of the Intelligence Services of the United States of America.
United States has the information you've got.
Yes.
And more importantly, the Inspector General made a determination about the credibility of your complaint.
They found, after interviewing myself and the subjects and other subjects that I'm not even cognizant on who they were, they found my complaint urgent and credible for the intelligence committees.
The word credible is important.
Yes.
You appreciate. So
they found that it was credible. I feel like a lot of the skeptics gloss right over a lot of this. And these are actual this is public domain stuff here, okay? This is public domain documents now.
An official investigatory body of the United States government has determined that your allegations are credible.
Correct.
Coming up, if it is
correct.
True, then what? What are we going to do if the biggest secret on the planet is now out in the open? And what are they going to do? How will the non-human intelligence react?
News Nation.
This is one of the gravest constitutional crises for your country ever.
Absolutely.
Give me some hope here.
Yeah.
There are good people.
There are very good people, and I want that message to be crystal clear. Let's not demonize holistically the U.S. government. There's a whole army of people that want change. I am one of tens, if not hundreds, of individuals within the government on these programs that would like a change.
What kind of change does David Grusch want? As he's said here tonight, he wants the NHI technology to be shared so the rest of the world can benefit from it.
And I use nuclear weapons or nuclear physics as an example. It's an acknowledged program. We have nuclear weapons. You don't get to know the designs, but nuclear physics.
Nuclear weapons.
holistically is unclassified. Academia studies it. And why would you suppress basic astrophysics, astrobiology, other hard and soft sciences broadly? It's totally nuts.
Grusch has left the government. He wasn't part of Arrow during the most recent congressional hearings when still more UAP were revealed, including this one captured by a drone in the Middle East in 2022.
There it goes.
His whistleblower case will take months to conclude. In the meantime, he says he's starting a scientific foundation. And he's willing to speak to anyone in Washington who has the clearance and the desire to.
Guys, I don't want to say it's aliens, but it's aliens.
Hear the classified information he could not share here.
I make myself available to Secretary Austin, DNI Haynes, who was a recipient of my complaints. I'm happy to further brief elected officials on the specific ecosystem of secrecy down to the fine details.
Whoever they are. How will the non-human intelligence react to the revelation that human beings now know they're here?
Yeah, I mean, obviously the non-human intelligences have been around for a while, at least multiple decades in modern history, and they've allowed ourselves to annihilate ourselves, genocide, war, famine, etc. So at the very least, I think they're kind of neutral on what humans decide to do with their free will.
And as for how we, the human race, will react to his story, here Grusch evinces that quintessentially human characteristic, optimism.
I don't have this utopian ideology that this is going to, solve world problems, stop war entirely. But all I want is a moment of pause and to see if the subject unites us as we've obviously become more divided over the last couple of decades.
Because, if anything else, what you're revealing may mean we all start thinking of ourselves not as American, Australian, Russian, Chinese, but as human.
Human family, I think that's totally the right term, yeah.
So there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. The full interview with Mr. David Grusch, U.S. intelligence officer. Let's head back over to the UFO. It does look like we have ran out of time on tonight's show, so we are going to be breaking this up into a 2-part special. Okay? I think this is worth 2 parts for this show. I think we might be able to come back maybe tomorrow evening and do the second part, so a back-to-back feature 2 nights in a row. What do you guys think about that? Yeah, it's looking like we're coming up at about the hour-and-a-half mark, so I have to stop here, but at least we got through the first half. Let's get that desktop audio muted. At least we got through the first half, which was all about David Grusch here. I think we're going to have to split this up into a second part, though, because I have so much other stuff to show you guys. We have the UFO footage. We have the Vegas UFO story, which, by the way, guys, the Vegas UFO story and this whistleblower story came out at the same exact time. My biggest question is, which story is the one to distract us? Is it the Vegas story or is it this story here? Which one has come out to distract us? Which of these 2 UFO stories is the big distraction, so to speak? Excuse me. Itchy the Killer says, David Sus. That reminds me of our live chat poll this evening, ladies and gentlemen. If you have not voted in our live chat poll this evening, you have about 10 seconds, 10 Mississippis to go over and vote in that poll. It says, do you think the UFO whistleblower David Grusch is telling the truth? I'm going to end that poll off in 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. We are ending off the poll tonight. 56% of the people this evening in the poll believe that David is telling the truth, that aliens exist, and that Mr. Grusch is telling the truth. 44% say no, so pretty close to even, but we do have a majority here of people saying yes. Miss Tiger Eye, thank you so much for tuning in tonight. Says Nemico, yo bro, can you say hi to my friend? Well, Miss Tiger Eye, I'm not Nemico. I am Kleptar from the Zeta Reticuli system. Here in place of Nemico tonight to give the news, but I will say hello to your human friend. Hello, human friend. Good to see you. Good to see everybody that tuned in tonight for our special report. As we're calling it now, we're calling the new show Tinfoil Time. When we get into any conspiratorial topics, we're gonna be calling the show Tinfoil Time, and tinfoil hats are not included. You do have to bring your own tinfoil hats. Rakasan 2013 says both are distractions that could possibly be. Well, consider us fully distracted. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for tuning in this evening for our weekly intel report. Again, a special report on UFOs and UAPs this week. A two-part series. We're going to be coming back at you probably tomorrow evening or during the day some point. I'm going to see when I can get it out for you guys, the second part. But don't worry, we will be back for a second round of UFO news for you guys. I got a whole bunch of stuff coming at you. We got footage. We got UFO footage of actual aliens. We got actual alien footage, all right? We're going to show it to you guys. We got Las Vegas aliens. We got aliens in Vegas. We got all sorts of stuff. We got articles. We got videos. We got all the evidence that you guys need to see right here on Nemico Network. If you are not subscribed, hit that subscribe button. Smash the notification bell. Good night to everybody. Thank you so much for tuning in tonight. Make sure to hit that like button. Keep an eye out for the summary. There will probably be a summarized version of this video uploaded to the YouTube channel for everybody to see. Big shout out to our community editor out there. Huge shout out to you. Thank you so much, everybody, for tuning in tonight. Until next time, you are watching Nemico Network. Paranormal activity. Government denies knowledge. Do you believe the truth is out there?
Something that will change our daily lives, that will change history, 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 that will change history. That will be the most beautiful day.